Hello and welcome to London, and today I'm very excited to be sharing with you my 12-month ownership review of the Sony A6700. Funny enough, my first experience with the A6700 was right here in London when a mate lent it to me. And at the time, I honestly wasn't expecting to be blown away by the A6700, but after just a day of use, I knew immediately I had to buy one for myself. Since then, the A6700 has proven to be one of the best cameras in its class. I've used it extensively for YouTube and travel, and it constantly delivers high-end images, some of which I'm incredibly proud of. The video quality is just as impressive. Honestly, this camera puts to shame some of the full-frame cameras that are like double the price. And I've actually got a little bit of a theory that I'd like to share with you a little bit later on about the A6700. One of the first things that truly impressed me with the A6700 is that jump in image quality. This camera is rocking a 26 megapixel back illuminated CMOS sensor, and it's the same sensor found in the FX30 and most recently the ZV-E10 Mark II. It's also impressive to see that Sony has made improvements with the A6700's color science and is now more on par with their more expensive full frame cameras. In fact, when you compare images from the A6700 and put them side by side with something like the A7 IV, you're actually hard pressed to spot any major differences. I mean, look at these two photographs. Can you tell which is which? And just for a reference, A is the A6700. In my opinion, the A6700 is the camera in Sony's ecosystem that has significantly narrowed the gap between full frame and APS-C cameras. And this is something I actually explored and delved deep into in one of my recent videos when I compared the two different sensor sizes. And the A6700 is a real game changer. Another absolute game changer with the A6700 is the introduction of AI autofocus. Now, Sony's autofocus has always been one of the best in the business. It has been renowned, it's robust, it's so reliable, but somehow by introducing this AI autofocus, they've been able to take it to a whole new level. What I find completely bonkers is when I switched from my Sony A7 IV to the A6700, I noticed such a significant difference in autofocus speed and also precision. On this camera, the autofocus is incredibly robust and can also recognize a wide range of subjects. Over the last year of owning this camera, I have really put it through its paces, even at places like Silverstone when you've got cars whizzing past at like 80 to 120 miles an hour. This camera was able to lock on with such precision and never lost focus. It just handled those conditions effortlessly. The autofocus is exactly the same for video as well. You can honestly set up your camera, go and do your thing, and trust that 9 times out of 10, the camera would stay perfectly locked onto your subject. Another really cool feature is you can actually tap on an object to track it with autofocus and it will stay locked on. Now, that's also pretty cool and handy as well. Plus, I really like the fine-tuning options you get with the A6700, being able to adjust the AF transition speed and the AF shift sensitivity, meaning you can dial in exactly how responsive the autofocus is. And if you're a solo filmmaker, this is a dependable tool and will make your life so much easier, and I speak from personal experience there. When it comes to video specs, the A6000 series has always felt somewhat limited, but that's understandable given where technology and the development cycle was when those cameras were released. The A6700 though completely breaks that mold. I don't think many of us, myself included here, expected such a leap in video performance when the A6700 was announced. I mean, from this camera you are getting 6K oversampled footage compressed into a 4K full pixel readout up to 60 FPS, and if that wasn't enough, it even offers 4K at 120 FPS with a 1.5 times crop, and all of this can be achieved at 10-bit 422 color, making it a breeze and an absolute pleasure to color grade. As for stabilization, the A6700 does come equipped with an IBIS system. It isn't anything revolutionary, but does a solid job even during panning, and if you need extra stability, the active mode applies a 1.5 times crop to further smooth out your footage, which is great when you are shooting handheld. In terms of low light performance, this is where the A6700 really excels, as it is equipped with a dual native ISO, on an APS-C camera. So you have one at 800 and then another one at 2500. This means you could shoot at 800 in well lit environments or bump it up to 2500 when the lighting conditions are less than ideal, minimizing noise while maintaining good image quality. What makes the A6700 so hard to beat is the form factor. You are getting all of these high-end specs in such a small, lightweight, compact body. I mean, this thing only weighs 493 grams. It is a perfect hybrid camera for street, travel, car, and just everyday photography, really. That's actually the key reason I ended up buying the A6700. I love the form factor of this camera, and for street photography it is just ideal, and it's so lightweight. This lightweight body is great for traveling. It's been with me this year to Lisbon, Paris, and I'm soon taking it to Thailand and Vietnam as well. I also like that this camera doesn't really draw that much attention. It doesn't look like a big professional camera. It doesn't scream, "Look at me, rob me, I'm an expensive big camera." It's kind of like subtle and incognito. I like that. Now, despite the A6700 being a smaller camera, you'd be surprised to hear that the grip on this camera is actually really nicely proportioned. It feels really good in the hand. I also like that Sony didn't skimp out this camera and put 3 dials on it. So you have one on the front here. I use this one for shutter speed, and you have one on the back here, which I use for aperture, and then this back wheel here I use for my ISO. I also appreciate that Sony included on this camera a flippy screen. This is super handy if you are vlogging, so you can easily monitor everything, or if you are shooting from low or high angles, you can adjust the screen so you can get your composition spot on. Oh wow, that did sound quite British. Would you like a cup of tea? I'm losing my mind here. One of the biggest perks with APS-C cameras, along with the lenses designed for them, is affordability. The A6700 becomes even more impressive when you consider it's priced at only $1,400. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that's cheap. It's not. It's more money than my first ever car. It is a significant investment. However, when you compare it to full frame cameras, it is a lot more affordable and does offer good bang for buck in comparison. I mean, look at it like this. For the price you pay just for the body of an A7 IV, you can get an A6700, a Sigma 18-50, and a Sigma 56mm f1.4 and still have some leftover Wonga. Now, whilst we're on the topic of lenses, I can actually give some lens recommendations for the A6700, but this doesn't just go for the A6700, this goes for any APS-C camera. First up, the Sigma 18-50. If you want a versatile workhorse zoom lens, then look no further than one of these. For those looking at prime lenses, consider the Sigma 56mm f1.4 or the Sigma 23mm f1.4, depending on your preferred focal length. Both options offer fantastic image quality and low light performance, making them great for portrait, car, and street photography. Lastly, if you're looking at a lens that you can vlog with, shoot landscapes with, architecture, or just capture any kind of wide scene, then definitely check out the Sigma 10-18 f2.8. Unfortunately, there is no such thing as the perfect camera, and the A6700, whilst so close, is still no exception. One of the biggest complaints I hear from a lot of people about this camera is the inclusion of only a single SD card slot. For enthusiasts or those just starting out, this isn't a significant issue, but for those who are semi-professionals, I can understand why this might be a bit of a drawback. Is this a deal breaker? I wouldn't say so. For its target audience, I think it's absolutely fine, and to be fair, I've been using it for the last year and it's not concerned me once. There is just one thing I wish this camera did come equipped with, and that was a simple joystick, preferably where the FM button is, because I feel like with how much space is on this camera, you could easily move that elsewhere. I use the joystick all the time on my A7 IV to adjust my focus point or navigate through the menus. While the A6700 does allow you to shift your focus point by tapping on screen or using the dial right here, it's a little bit more of a clunkier process. And honestly, after a year of use, that's the only complaint I have about this camera. One thing I have heard from some A6700 users is overheating. Now, personally, I have never been able to get this camera to overheat in anything other than 4K 120. For those shooting long takes with the A6700, I recommend in the menus changing your auto power off temperature to high, as this will extend your record time threshold. If you are constantly shooting 4K 120 as long takes, well, more power to you. It's time now for my crazy theory time about the A6700. I don't have a tinfoiled hat, unfortunately. This North Face will have to do. So here's my crazy theory. I believe that when the Sony A7 IV comes out, it will basically be a full frame version of the A6700. Right, just imagine that for a second, right? 4K up to 60 FPS with no crop, and then 4K 120 with a crop. Throw into the mix a high-end sensor for stills, AI autofocus, and you have possibly one of the best hybrid cameras on the market. If Sony took this direction, it would make sense, because in many ways the A6700 already outperforms the A7C Mark II and the A7 IV. For example, the A7 IV doesn't have AI autofocus, and whilst the A7C Mark II does, both cameras can only shoot 4K 60 with a crop, and shooting 1080 can only be done at 120 FPS. Meanwhile, the A6700 can shoot 4K 60 with no additional crop and 4K 100 with a crop, and can do 1080 at 240 FPS. So yeah, that's my rather bold prediction about the A7 IV. What are your thoughts on this, right? And by the way, if this totally transpires in the future, you know for a fact that I am referring back to this video, and I'll be like, I predicted this, but hey, that's just a theory, a camera theory, alright. Over the last year of using the A6700, I have been massively impressed and enjoyed every moment using it. This camera made me realise that I don't always need to rely on massive full frame cameras to capture great photography or video. The A6700, which is a fraction of the cost and more compact, has shown me that lighter, smaller cameras can present more opportunities to be creative. Because it's so unassuming, I found myself being more experimental and spontaneous behind the camera, and that's not something I expected from an APS-C camera. Some of my best photography over the last year has been captured using this camera, and as a hybrid camera, I truly believe the A6700 is one of the best options currently available. After 12 months of solid use, this is a camera that I can confidently recommend to anybody. It is a camera that will future-proof you, and it is a camera that will allow you to grow your skills and creativity in both photography and videography. And there we have it. That is my 12-month ownership review of the Sony A6700. I do hope this video has been helpful, insightful. If it has, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. It'd be great to have you on board of this ever so growing community. And if you do have any further questions or there's anything I've missed, please let me know in the comment section below. And if you already do own the A6700, it would be great to hear your hands-on experience using this camera as well. But with all that said and done, until next time, create, explore, and inspire.